Chapter 631. 2 days ago, I asked everyone to restrain themselves, so now it's my turn to clean up this situation. After that, Xian Mo stood up and stretched his arms, as if he wanted to hold something in his arms. At the same time, the Wuxia League Supremes on the other side of the rostrum also stopped talking and looked at Xian Mo at the same time, each of them on guard. Obviously, the Dixian Supremes were impatient and were about to take action. No matter what their action was, it would not be beneficial to the Wuxia League. Therefore, when it was necessary to stop it, they would not hesitate to confront the Dixian Supremes head-on. However, when the situation was tense, Wang Wu stood up and said, "Hey, you're not going to be crazy enough to directly interfere with the performance, are you?" Xian Mo chuckled and said, "If you don't intend to abide by the rules, we don't need to wait for so long. Don't worry, we won't violate any rules." As she spoke, the power gathered in front of her chest became more and more powerful. It was above any cultivator in the Wuxia League, beyond the peak of the Unity stage, and could even be regarded as the top power in the Mahayana stage. The perfected lords present had no doubt that if this power were to be unleashed, no one would be able to withstand it alone. Therefore, he too, Feng Yin, and the other sect leaders of the major sects connected their magic power at the same time, ready to join forces to fight against the enemy. At the same time, the Dixian Supremes felt the tit-for-tat momentum and also responded one after another, either by taking out their immortal treasures or simply chanting incantations. Golden patterns appeared on their skin, and their fighting spirit burned like flames. A war had already stepped on the edge. As the initiator, Xian Mo smiled helplessly and said, "Don't be so hostile, everyone. Please take back your immortal treasures and immortal techniques. We really don't need to waste precious power on each other." Wang Wu said, "That's right. Then please explain, what are the essence chi balls you gathered in front of your chest for? Is it to liven up the atmosphere?" Xian Mo said, "There's no harm in saying that I'm here to stop this farce." "Oh. The rules clearly state that external forces are not allowed to interfere with the competition." Xian Mo smiled and said, "That is indeed the case, but on the other hand, the rules have never said that we are not allowed to interfere with the arena itself." As he spoke, the power in front of Xian Mo's chest finally finished accumulating, and a tremendous force that could shake an entire province exploded with a loud bang. At the same time, several Supremes subconsciously tried to use spells to stop it. However, the difference in level and quality caused these spells to be bounced off by an irresistible force. People could only watch helplessly as this huge force erupted and enveloped the entire arena in the blink of an eye. Soon, the red-robed patriarch calculated the acceleration multiplier of Xian Mo. The multiplier was not particularly exaggerated, but this was a time distortion phenomenon that spread throughout the entire arena and lasted for an unknown time. To exaggerate a bit, under the theory of immortal cultivation in 9 regions, this phenomenon was simply impossible to exist. "Is this really not against the rules?" the red-robed patriarch asked. She interfered with the entire arena, and her power did not penetrate the inside of the arena. Therefore, Wang Lu didn't even notice the abnormality. At most, it can only be regarded as an edge ball. Wang Wu said, "But speaking of edge ball, isn't Wang Lu's action the same? Therefore, we don't have enough position to accuse each other of anything. It's just that everyone has their own means." Time acceleration, she's awesome. But, it's just 10 times faster. Wang Wu inwardly sneered, "So what if it's 10 times faster?" Yes, the super long novel that was regarded as a classic by Wang Lu was not infinite in length. So far, the length was about 20 million words, which was appalling. Wang Lu's copying speed was 100,000 words a day, which was far above that of an ordinary person. And after 10 times faster, it was 1 million words a day. A series of 20 million words could be copied in only 20 days. This might seem a bit long for Dixian, but in the Wuxia League, it was too short. 20 days was far from enough for those contestants to make a qualitative breakthrough. Wang Lu's own expected time was more than 1 year. How to make up for the huge gap between 20 days and 1 year? Very simple, it depended on creative ability. Because the novel was not finished, so far, the plot was completely open, and no one knew what would happen next. Therefore, when Wang Lu finished copying the existing part, he would start writing on his own. As for Wang Lu's creative ability, Wang Wu did not doubt it at all. A few years ago, when the master and disciple lived together happily on Nanfei's peak, it was common for the master and disciple to cheat each other. And Wang Lu often wrote his master's **** doujin novels as a means of revenge. And the plot design in those doujin novels was full of fantastic ideas, which made Wang Wu, the person involved, amazed. She couldn't stop reading it, and even lost her appetite. She had to see clearly what kind of **** she had encountered in the novel before she could feel at ease. And this was the most hateful thing about Wang Lu. Not only did he write **** doujinshi, but every time, he would never finish it. He would always come to the point where his passion surged and his sword would come to an abrupt stop. And when Wang Wu questioned him with the previous drafts, Wang Lu sneered, "Bitch, you want to have a climax? No way." Never finishing a novel was undoubtedly a bad habit in the eyes of ordinary people, but in the current situation, it was simply a rare divine skill. It was best if Wang Lu could maintain his creative energy for 100 years. He would write until the seas dried up and the rocks crumbled, or until the pretentious black-clothed Dixian couldn't hold it anymore and came out to stop. On the other side, after the time distortion, Xian Mo sat down wearily. Her body couldn't help but tremble, and beads of sweat began to flow from her forehead. Time distortion, for a first-class Dixian like her, was also an extremely heavy burden. Just now, she tried her best, and even her immortal spirit was almost unstable, but finally, she completed the immortal technique. Among the effects of this immortal technique, 90% of it was a trick. Distorting time had always been a supreme masterpiece of the immortal Tao. Although Xian Mo had studied this art quite a bit, she could not be considered a top-notch great master. In the past, immortal Qin could only use a pot of immortal tea, so how could she surpass immortal Qin? The key to this immortal technique was to borrow strength to fight strength, and it was very fragile in nature. There were 3 weaknesses. First, there couldn't be an existence that was too strong in the field. The stronger the existence, the stronger the influence on time and space, and the more difficult it was to interfere. If there was a supreme-level cultivator in the field, it would be difficult for her to speed up by 20 to 30%. Second, the changes in the field couldn't be too intense. For example, moving mountains and filling seas, lightning and thunder would greatly affect the time distortion. However, Wang Lu chose the quietest and most peaceful performance. His violent sword energy was restrained in thousands of thin sheets of paper, and the impact on time distortion was minimized. Third, there was only one living being in the field, and the time distortion immortal technique was most afraid of too many people. With every additional person, the effect of the immortal technique would be halved, and it would be almost ineffective if there were more than 3 to 5 people. Fortunately, the Wanxian League didn't know much about immortal techniques, so they didn't see the flaws. Right now, the field was accelerated by 10 times, but as time passed, the effect of time distortion would continue to increase, until it was 20 times, 30 times, or even 100 times. According to Wang Lu's daily copying of 100,000 words, no matter how monumental it was, it would only take a few days to finish it. With this thought, Xian Mo restrained her immortal spirit, and her eyelids were already very heavy. Before going to sleep, she didn't forget to remind the people around her. "Help me keep an eye on him, don't let him play tricks after he finishes." Her companions laughed and said, "Don't worry, you've already done this much, how can we hold you back?" Thus, Xian Mo fell into a deep sleep with some peace of mind. When she opened her eyes again, it was already 20 days later. Xian Mo was surprised by the length of her immortal sleep this time, and the backlash from the time distortion was even more than she expected. She thought that after the black and white combination, her strength would rise to another level. It seemed that 16,000 years of sleep had caused her to degenerate a lot. On the other hand, 20 days had passed, and no one had woken her up. When did they become so patient? Then, she heard a conversation that she couldn't understand at all. Interesting, interesting. I didn't expect that after this ordeal, the main character's level didn't decrease, but increased instead. He's already reached level 5000. I think he'll be able to join hands with his allies in the next battle and sweep the Saint Spirit realm. But the 3 Saint Spirits are all above level 6000, so it won't be easy to win this battle. But the main character's equipment level is higher, and he has a large number of demon pets. The advantage in numbers can't be underestimated. Anyway, let's cast our recommendation votes and monthly votes first. I'll say in advance, starting from 0 is just a joke in this book. Don't go too deep into the settings. So, I could only continue watching until he ran out of ideas. Who knew that he would be able to maintain the storyline without collapsing at the rate of 10 million words a day? Xian Mo was also shocked. 10 million words a day, and it didn't collapse? How is that possible? Usually, a novel with hundreds of thousands of words is considered long. Hasn't he written hundreds of millions of words by now? What is he writing? If you want to talk about the storyline, it's simple. It's nothing more than leveling up and killing people. However, every once in a while, the novel will release some new expansion pack, which will suddenly increase the depth of the story. When there is no more expansion pack to release, he will design a server reload. In short, it's to let the characters return to their original state, and the plot will start all over again. Xian Mo heard this and quickly interrupted. Isn't this kind of rough handling of the plot worth stopping? This is clearly deliberately delaying the plot. Dixian smiled bitterly. But the server reload is to save one of the male protagonist's lovers. Although their levels are all reset, the person who was supposed to die has survived, and even their predestined fate has been changed. Plus, they have experienced the path of leveling up from 0, the price is completely acceptable. This is possible. Then how long will it take to write this? Dixian said, we are also guessing how long it will take to write from 0. Currently, people who are good at deduction have given the result that it will take at least 1 year. 1 year? This is under the situation where the speed is accelerated by 100 times. Doesn't that mean that if no one stops him, he can write for 100 years? The Earth Immortals nodded in admiration. Yes, this young man is really a peerless genius. Xian Mo couldn't help but sigh. This is ridiculous. With that, she stood up again and was ready to condense the immortal aura in front of her. However, as soon as she moved, she was stopped by her companion. Don't be impulsive. If you do it again, your immortal aura will collapse. But it's enough. At this point, no one can criticize you anymore. Next, wait for Black to show up. Black, of course, Xian Mo knew that as long as Black was willing to show up, any problem would no longer be a problem. However, it was precisely because she couldn't guess his mind that she was anxious. Black regarded himself as a sinner. Since his defeat in the rebellion against the fallen immortals, his attitude towards Dixian seemed to be indifferent. Sometimes, even when Dixian's career encountered great setbacks, he didn't come forward to help. Therefore, Xian Mo couldn't guarantee that if Wang Lu continued to delay endlessly, Black would come forward to stop him. That was why she spared no effort to make a move. So, now, did she really have to resign herself to fate? While Xian Mo was still tangled, several Dixian had been immersed in the magnificent world of starting from 0 again. Hey, the 3 holy spirits have been defeated while we were talking. So, the protagonist can finally get the Mirror of Nirvana to restart the world line and let the Daughter of the Earth be reborn, right? Ah, the plot that I've been looking forward to for 100 million words is finally going to start. Xian Mo's hair stood on end. Restarting the world line? Moreover, it's the protagonist who deliberately restarted it. What kind of plot has developed? Moreover, it took 100 million words just to restart the world line? Could 1 year really stop Wang Lu? Speaking of which, while sharpening his sword qi, he could also create 10 million words a day. According to Wang Lu's timeline, he had been standing still in the field and writing for several years. This tenacity was simply incredible. At the same time, several other Dixian felt deeply worried about this. Not everyone could be as heartless as the several Dixian in the front row, immersed in the plot of the novel. The more wonderful and long Wang Lu's novel was, the more worried they were. The grand competition had not yet officially begun, but the opening ceremony was already full of twists and turns, which made the situation completely out of control. What should they do next? On the rostrum, there was another unbearable silence. Time went by bit by bit. 1 day, 2 days. The black never appeared. Some Dixians such as Biyao who looked on coldly from the sidelines also showed no expression, as if they were watching a good show. Just when Xian Mo was beginning to despair about the current situation, things took a turn for the better. Because Wang Lu suddenly stopped in the field. His stop was so abrupt that many people present were caught off guard. What's wrong? Why did he stop? Yeah, he's about to do the double cultivation with the 47 revolutions of the mysterious daughter of the 9 heavens. Why did he stop? Xian Mo also widened his eyes, puzzled by the situation in the field. Because Wang Lu seemed to be in the right state. His sword intent had been nourished to be sharp and fierce, his sword chi was both hard and soft, and his immortal heart had also become meticulous under the training of the long-term distraction serial. It was the moment when he cultivated to his heart's content, and he had just finished rebooting the world line for the 47th time from zero. He was about to get married with his former nemesis, his current lover, the Empyrean fairy of the 9 heavens. The plot was reaching its climax, so why would he stop? From any point of view, there was no reason for him to stop, but he did. But, why? At this time, the number 1 king pill in 9 regions from the Wuxia League suddenly jumped up and said, "What the hell? Wang Lu, you be *tch, you're really addicted to being a eunuch. Every time you write a sex scene, you always do this. Now you finally eat your own medicine. When it's time to push the mysterious daughter of the 9 heavens, you subconsciously become a eunuch, ha ha ha. What kind of reason is that?" Xian Mo was puzzled, but he would not miss this opportunity. He immediately stood up and said, "Enough, since we've exhausted our talent, then let's stop this show." As soon as his voice fell, he heard his companions exclaim, "You can't do that." "Yes, Sister Xian Mo, the plot is at the critical point. You can't just stop like that, it's too suspenseful. I won't have any appetite. If I keep thinking about this plot, I will have obstacles in my heart in the future, and I will have no hope of becoming an immortal." Xian Mo angrily scolded, "Reading a novel and you're already filled with inner demons, you don't need to cultivate the immortal path. You can't put it like that. I didn't choose this path of the immortal Tao myself." Xian Mo had a headache. To put it nicely, this group of mischievous people had pure immortal hearts and were carefree, but to put it bluntly, they were just idiots. Although they were strong, they were really difficult to control. However, before Xian Mo had a headache, Wang Lu took the initiative to jump out after a moment of hesitation. With the departure of the main character, this month-long calligraphy performance naturally came to an end. When he walked to the rostrum, Wang Lu looked 70% unsatisfied, 20% self-deprecating, and 10% dejected. With Wang Lu's temperament, there were not many things that could make him feel dejected, so it was clear that it was not his intention to end the series from zero. The perfected immortals of the Wuxia League immediately asked, "Wang Lu, was there an external force that interfered with your creation?" "Oh no, copying?" Wang Lu sighed helplessly, then shrugged and said, "It has nothing to do with outsiders, it's my own idiocy that made a mistake. I prepared everything in advance, but I didn't bring enough paper." "What? You didn't bring enough paper?" Wang Lu said, "Yeah, it's an idiotic reason, isn't it? I put millions of pieces of paper in my mustard seed bag, thinking that it would be enough or even more. Who would have thought that I was forced to stop because I didn't bring enough paper?" Before he could finish, Dixian dashed over from the side with a big stack of paper in his hand. "I have paper here. You can have as much as you want. Please make sure to continue writing the book." This enthusiasm shocked Wang Lu. "You are?" Dixian said enthusiastically, "I'm your loyal reader." "Huh? The Earth Immortal then took out 2 jade slips that were rich in spiritual energy. These are the edited versions that I personally compiled from scratch. Not only have they integrated all the chapters that you have updated, but they have also corrected the occasional typos. Oh, no, fake words. I made 2 copies. I'll give you one for your collection, and I'll have to trouble you to sign the other one, okay? Wang Lu nodded in silence and then signed his name on one of the jade slips, Zhang'er Iron Whip. Although I'm exhausted, there's still a second update. Please vote for me. Chapter 633. After Wang Lu signed his pen name, that Dixian immediately held the jade piece and showed it off to his companions. Ha ha ha, I have his signature. Then, he ran back like a wisp of smoke. Please, you must finish writing this unparalleled novel from scratch. I'm a bit, it's okay, we understand. You've been writing for so long, so you should take a break. But, we will always look forward to it. Wang Lu held the jade piece in his hand and watched him gradually go away. At the same time, he could vaguely feel that there was a fanatical belief gathering outside the rostrum. Wang Lu was the wisdom sect leader, so he was very clear that this force was the legendary power of faith. The problem was, where did he get this power of faith? His identity as the wisdom sect leader had gradually faded, and he didn't attach much importance to the power of faith. Then, could it be that this power that came from his reader group? He had been writing his book in the arena for many years, but in the end, not only did he delay the time, he also gathered a lot of fans. This was really a pleasant surprise, but the most important thing right now was not this. Wang Lu frowned. He had already noticed the strange atmosphere here. TSK, no wonder I felt something was wrong. Why are you still here? With your patience, you can't possibly wait for me to write my book for so many years, right? How long has it been here? Wang Wu said with a deeply painful expression of being suspected by a close relative. 1 month. TSK, only 1 month? That doesn't reflect this old man's endurance and tenacity at all. I feel like I've been here for 5 or 6 years. But, from another point of view, in just 1 month, I've achieved 5 or 6 years worth of cultivation results, which is actually a blessing in disguise. Hey, it sounds like you're quite confident in your own cultivation results. Could it be that after 5 or 6 years of cultivation, your dagger has grown a bit longer? Being ridiculed viciously, Wang Lu narrowed his eyes and prepared to launch a fierce counterattack. Speaking of which, it had been a while since the master and disciple quarreled. Did this B*TCH think that after being distorted by time for 5 or 6 years in the arena, his culinary skills had become rusty? However, before Wang Lu could open his mouth, Xian Mo interrupted him coldly. Are you done with your idle chatter? Are there any more programs after this? If it's gone, this farce can end, right? Wang Lu hurriedly said, Of course not. The program list has been handed over to you. There's still a group crosstalk left. Please be patient. Then hurry up. Wang Lu immediately gestured for the last group to appear on stage. Speaking of which, this group of people had worked hard, waiting outside for Wang Lu for a month. Because Wang Lu wasn't sure how long his calligraphy could be delayed. If he was lucky, he could delay it for 1.5 years. After a while, someone beside him stood up and said with a smile, the name of the crosstalk is called New Year's Greeting. Then another person stood up and said with the same smile, the so-called New Year's Greeting is a cultural tradition that has been passed down for a long time in our 9 regions. Then, one by one, the group of crosstalk performers quickly explained the ins and outs of the tradition of New Year's Greeting. Some of the audience who didn't know what was going on felt that they had vaguely learned something, but most of them were inexplicable. Xian Mo whispered to the one named Xiaolei, is group crosstalk like this? Xiaolei said, that's not right at all. The crosstalk I've heard is basically a few performers amusing each other, and sometimes they will sing a few paragraphs. This kind of long explanation. Maybe there is, but there is no need to deliberately divide it into sentences and say one sentence for one person. What is this? We just explained to everyone what New Year's greeting is. Why do we have to explain it like this? Xiaolei quickly patted Xian Mo on the shoulder and said, "Sister Xian Mo, listen, they are going to explain." As a result, when Xian Mo turned her gaze, the person who spoke had changed. Because if you don't understand these things, it's easy to make a fool of yourself. Then a person next to her turned his head, not to the person who just spoke, but to the other side. "What kind of joke?" The person on the other side immediately said, "For example, I know a person named Zhang San. He doesn't know what New Year's greeting is, so he made a fool of himself." Another person behind that person asked, "What kind of joke did Zhang San make?" A newcomer stood up and said, "One day, Zhang San went out to visit his relatives." Next, more than 100 people finished Zhang San's story in the form of dialogue. The gist of it was nothing more than a misunderstanding caused by Zhang San's wrong words when he visited his relatives. Everyone laughed at him, and then an elder came forward to point out Zhang San's mistake. He taught Zhang San to earnestly study the excellent traditional culture and become a useful talent for the country and society. Zhang San was ashamed and excited, and said that he would definitely follow the elder's instructions and work hard. As the story was being told, Xian Mo felt uncomfortable all over. This kind of one-sentence conversation, as well as their stiff, fake smiles, it was as if there was an invisible will that played these 600 to 700 people like puppets in the palm of its hand. This feeling simply caused a chill to run down one's spine. Not to mention laughing, Xian Mo felt as if a gust of demonic wind from the depths of hell had blown by her side, and it blew to the point her soul core and body froze. She was silent for a long time and asked, "Xiaolei, what do you think about this performance? Is it because I can't catch the funny part?" Xiaolei said after some deliberation, "I have a feeling that this story is not a joke." "Then can you explain what is going on with those two people?" Xian Mo pointed to the side, only to see Wang Lu and Wang Wu rolling on the ground without any care for their image, and letting out creepy laughter. The two people kept laughing, even to the point of tears. As Xian Mo listened to the crosstalk story and the two people's heartfelt laughter, he could not help but wonder if it was a mistake for him not to be able to laugh. Xiaolei was tongue-tied. He wanted to say that the two people's brain circuits were different from ordinary people, and that it was not unusual for them to do anything, but listening to the exaggerated laughter, he could not say anything. "I don't really understand." Other than Xiaolei, Dixian did not understand anything else. What was so funny about the story just now? Could it be that the art form of later generations has evolved to a level that our aesthetics can no longer control? Could it be that there was a burden in the last lines that only later generations could understand? But then again, besides the two of them, Supreme He too, the red-robed patriarch, and the others were also sitting upright and still, without a hint of laughter on their faces. What exactly was the problem? While he was puzzled, the crosstalk actors had already begun to carry out a deeper analysis of the previous story, from why young people did not know the good traditions all the way to the attitude towards foreign cultures. The audience had already begun to feel nauseous from listening to it, and then they were relieved to find that according to the format of one sentence per person, the 600 or 700 people seemed to be almost finished. In fact, they actually had to finish. From the beginning of the program until now, the 600 or 700 people had said one sentence per person for at least an hour. The younger ones were fine, but some of the virtuous old artists were almost unable to stand, and needed the support of two people beside them at the same time to stand up straight. Xian Mo turned her head and glanced at Wang Lu. Unexpectedly, he did not delay the time on this program, but the next moment, she watched dumbfoundedly as the people on the stage began to leave in an orderly manner. From the other side, another group of people in plain long gowns walked in, smiling and waving to the audience. Damn, there are actually substitutes. The work of sorting out the spiritual sword brief is still in progress. The pressure of rushing the manuscript is a little big, but rest assured that the reward will be given as agreed. In addition to hundreds of people's one line of crosstalk, there were many more scenes. Xian Mo's heart turned cold. According to the rules, no one was allowed to interfere with the scene during the show. Wang Lu just waved his hand and brought out a lot of scenes, not because he used some magical spell, but because he had already calculated the time. In other words, could it be that he even calculated the dialogue at this moment? However, soon she had no time to think about these things, because the scenes in the arena had been extended. It recorded the daily life of those crosstalk actors. It was a daily life that she could not bear to look at. In a simple thatched hut, a woman in ragged clothes said in a hoarse voice, "Old Zhang, second brother and sister-in-law came again yesterday." The man named Old Zhang frowned. "Are they here to ask for money again?" "I told them that I will definitely pay them back. As long as Zhang Yuanwei holds another crosstalk meeting, I will be able to earn money to pay them back." The woman just sighed. When will Zhang Yuanwei hold another crosstalk meeting? And even if he does, will he invite you? Didn't you say the last performance wasn't funny at all? Old Zhang angrily slammed the table. "I secretly learned the jokes from a famous master in the county, how can it not be funny? Moreover, it's educational through entertainment. Isn't Zhang Yuanwei's young master lawless and needs someone to persuade him to be kind?" The woman opened her mouth but did not speak. Old Zhang became even angrier. "I know what you want to say. It's useless to teach through entertainment, right? The jokes I learned aren't funny, right? Just you wait, I will come up with funny jokes in the next 2 days." Then, the scene changed. It was old Zhang stammering by a deserted river. Then, that young man quickly turned his head. It didn't matter when he turned his head, guess what? He saw his wife. After saying that, old Zhang was stunned for a moment. He looked at the gurgling river, scratched his disheveled hair, and repeated himself. It didn't matter when he turned his head, guess what? He saw his wife. After a moment of silence, old Zhang opened his mouth again and repeated that sentence. He saw his wife. At this point, even he himself could clearly feel how boring this line was. So what if he saw his wife? What's so funny about it? There should be, right? But if there really is, why doesn't anyone laugh? Why has no one ever laughed at my crosstalk? I just want to do a crosstalk, I just want to hear people laugh. Why can't I, ha ha ha. Suddenly, he raised his head and laughed. His laughter echoed in the wilderness, as if he was happy, but there was a sense of desolation in it. Halfway through his laughter, old Zhang was already sobbing. Why isn't it funny at all? Why? Then, the story ended there. The scene changed, and it was a close-up of an actor who was reading his lines. It was old Zhang, but compared to the story, he looked much more energetic now. He was wearing a brand new plain robe without patches, and his beard and hair had been carefully trimmed. He looked 10 years younger, and even the wrinkles on his face seemed to have been wiped away. Although he only had one line, at this moment, he poured all of his energy into it. It didn't matter when he turned his head, guess what? He saw his wife, ha 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 ha. The last sentence made the 600 to 700 people in the arena laugh in unison. On the rostrum, Xian Mo was already stunned. Outside the arena, the audience watching the show through the broadcast signboard was also shocked. What was going on with this shocking reversal? Why did those clumsy crosstalk actors suddenly light up the light of humanity? If the previous group crosstalk performance was just a disgusting farce, then looking at old Zhang's smiling face, people suddenly felt a sense of warmth and gratification. Some people even couldn't help but smile a little. Wang Lu said proudly, "See, the audience has already used their expressions to give this show the fairest evaluation. This kind of praise that is completely out of sympathy and pity is something to be proud of. This is simply fraud." Wang Lu said, "How could it be fraud? Old Zhang is really just a clumsy craftsman, and I just displayed his clumsiness in a perfect manner. This kind of artistic display that is painted up means that it's not real in itself. So you also know that this is a display. This is a big show, a program, not a news interview. Don't you find it ridiculous that you doubt that I shouldn't have used artistic methods of expression?" Xian Mo was at a loss for words, especially when she saw that the few simple-minded Earth immortals around her had been deeply infected and began to laugh along with the laughter of the crosstalk actors on the stage. She really had nothing to say. "All right, you win this time." He mortgaged the compass to the dead face, and then promised to work for him and redeem the compass with his own salary. The dead face was silent for a long time, and finally, he agreed. At that time, Shu Si laughed in his heart. Sure enough, he was not mistaken. Although the dead face looked cold and indifferent, he was actually very kind-hearted. However, it was difficult for Shu Si, who was used to idling around since he was a child, to have perseverance in a job. In the first few days, he was still diligent, busy in the small shop of the dead face, but after a few days, he began to dawdle on his work. For example, right now, he was nominally going to the market in B3 area to sweep the goods, that is, to pick up some cheap goods. However, he soon ran to the sign in the center to watch the show. This was also one of the important entertainment activities for many residents of the City of Immortals in recent times. Today, it should be about the life and death farewell of that Jing Shiliu and his lover. Jing Shiliu's show is the most exciting in recent days. It would be a pity to miss it. While talking, Shu Si sat down under a tree in the square and looked up at the sky. If you don't believe me, I'll tell you a joke about the Western continent people paying a New Year's greeting, then you'll know what's going on. I really don't believe it. Tell me, what's going on? In the center of the square, a huge signboard hung down. Originally, the words, B3 area, were written on it, but now it was replaced by a water curtain projection spell. On the water screen, hundreds of actors in plain robes were performing a program called group comedy. This group of crosstalk performers had been performing day and night for 2 months straight. In these 2 months, the number of crosstalk actors who appeared on stage was more than 30,000, all of whom were unsuccessful artists that Wang Lu used the power of the Wanxian League to collect from all over 9 regions in the shortest time. Most of these people originally lived on the starvation line and were in poverty. But now, they were fortunate to participate in the opening ceremony of the grand competition, reaching the sky in a single bound. These people were divided into groups of 600 to 700 people, a total of 50 groups, and then took turns to go on stage. A complete rotation would take about 3 days. For these actors, the work intensity was not high, and it was not difficult to maintain. The crosstalk itself was boring. The educational but not funny crosstalk sounded like a kind of torture. However, outside of the crosstalk, the life stories that reflected the characters were particularly attractive. It stood to reason that this kind of unoriginal and insincere performance would soon be strongly resisted by the audience. However, Wang Lu had a pair of skillful hands that brought this group of crosstalk back to life and transformed it into a super popular show. Chapter 636. Jing Shiliu was a handsome man of 24 or 25 years old. Even the most demanding person would admit that Jing Shiliu was at least a man who was quite good-looking. Among the group of ugly crosstalk actors, his appearance was like a crane in a flock of chickens. However, among the 30,000 actors, there were many handsome people, and there were more than one who was better than Jing Shiliu. And Jing Shiliu was undoubtedly the most popular star in the City of Immortals in the past month. His story had been serialized for 13 times. The ratings continued to rise, and his popularity continued to rise. In B3 area, there were even peripherals related to his theme that began to be sold. And the basis of this popularity was the touching love story of Jing Shiliu and his lover. The main line of the story was roughly like this: Jing Shiliu was a poor man from the bottom of society. By chance, he got a ticket to a luxury ship that could cross the ocean. On that ship, he was lucky enough to meet a Luo, a young lady who dared to love and hate, and thus began an unusual love road. In the previous 13 episodes, the audience had been fascinated to appreciate how the two young people were not afraid of power and etiquette in their vigorous love, but they were also on tenterhooks when they saw the luxury ship accidentally hit a strange sea beast, and the hull collapsed and gradually sank, causing the two young people to encounter a dangerous situation. Finally, the show seemed to be coming to an end, and Jing Shiliu and a Luo also faced the test of life and death. At this point, no one knew how many people in the City of Immortals were concerned about this couple. People could not suppress their curiosity at all. What happened to Jing Shiliu and a Luo in the end? Although rationally, Jing Shiliu, of course, survived, otherwise, how could he perform on stage? However, in the previous dozens of performances, Jing Shilu always had a stiff dead face, and there was no emotion when he recited his lines, which made many people begin to doubt whether he was really alive. Moreover, even if he was still alive, what about a Luo who possessed 100 charms with every frown and smile? Did she die in that disaster, which caused Jing Shirlio's heart to die? And all of this would be revealed in this episode. Therefore, even though Xu Si knew that being lazy and absent at this time was likely to affect his 8 Desolations 6 Directions soup, he still could not help but run over. In any case, the 8 Desolations 6 Directions soup is definitely not only in the hands of Dead Face. But if you missed this episode, I'm afraid there won't be a repeat in the future. Thinking of this, Xu Si felt even more justified. He directly lay down under the tree, and his posture seemed very comfortable. After a while, Jing Shirlio's group of actors arrived late. He just coldly raised his eyes. His gaze seemed to penetrate the signboard and went straight to the heart of everyone. Then, a cold wind rose and froze the anger. A moment later, the man in black said, "The show just now is a scam. This is the real Jing Shirlu." With that, he stretched out his hand and also summoned a picture in the arena. On one of them, the face of Jing Shirlu was reflected. However, compared with the previous Jing Shirlu, this Jing Shirlu seemed a bit timid and hazy. Although he was born in a poor family, he was open and aboveboard, and had a cheerful temperament. Next, the picture reflected the face of a girl, which was 70 to 80% similar to a Luo, but not as bright as a Luo. Her eyes were a bit slender, her skin was a bit darker, and her figure was a bit more plump. It was just that, her eyes were full of hostility. The man in black explained, "This is the real A Luo." The two of them did not meet on a huge ship. Instead, a Luo's husband raised some down-and-out entertainers at home, and Jing Shirlu was one of them. At the same time, a Luo is not a cheerful girl who dares to love and hate. She is just a wanton widow who can't control herself and can't wait to pull all the good-looking men in the world to bed. On the picture, a Luo said to Jing Shirlu with a smile, "Little Zheng, my shoulders are very sore, come in and give me a massage." Jing Shirlu looked up at her in fear, "Miss, I'm just a crosstalk performer, please don't embarrass me." "So what if you're a crosstalk performer? Are you not a man just because you're a crosstalk performer?" "Miss, you must be joking." "Of course, I'm a man, but," a Luo raised her eyebrows, "if I tell you to come in, then come in. Be careful, or I'll ask my father to kick you out." Jing Shirlu was finally defeated by the tyrannical power, and shrunk back into the room. Then, there was a burst of moaning sounds that made adults feel extremely uncomfortable. After a while, the picture changed. Jing Shirlu had changed from a handsome man to a haggard figure. Especially when he walked, his legs were clamped together, and his posture was even more miserable. Obviously, the hard work of serving Miss A Luo was far from what a crosstalk performer could bear. But a Luo still did not know when to stop. "Little Zheng, where did you go? Hurry up and come here, I want it again today. If you dare not come, I will let people break the legs of your parents, and then catch your little lover called I made to feed to the dogs, do you hear me?" Zheng Shirlio's expression was originally bitter, but when he heard the last words, his whole body was shocked, and his eyes gradually turned cold, revealing a trace of madness. Then, perhaps it was God's will or luck, he accidentally touched a shovel outside the flower bed. His slender and thin hand, which only knew how to hold a pen, now held the shovel tightly. "If I wake up and find that you have lost, I will consider jumping ship." After saying this, Wang Lu could no longer support himself and fell asleep, leaving the group of Supremes with indescribable embarrassment. This kind of naked condescending and distrustful tone was really rare for these big shots with incomparably prominent status. And the most important thing was the last sentence. Jump ship? Jump to where? On Dixian's side? In theory, this was, of course, a joke. However, Wang Lu was a person who could not be judged by common sense. He had already done too many things that were taken as a joke. For example, the 3-month opening ceremony. Who would not think that it was a joke beforehand? If the union of 10,000 immortals really lost to the ancient Earth immortals in the grand competition, would he really jump ship to the Earth immortal camp? He might really be able to do this kind of thing. On a larger scale, the grand competition was for dominance, but in the final analysis, it was still to fight against the crisis of the fallen immortal. If the Wuxia League was really rotten, then it was understandable that a good bird would choose a tree to nest in. On a smaller scale, on the Dixian side, Xian Mo obviously had an unusual relationship with him, and during this time, he had unearthed a large group of brainless fans. In addition, he was the excavator, the opener, and even the successor of this group of immortal tombs, so there was not much resistance to him joining the Dixian camp. The more they thought about it, the more complicated the Supreme's eyes became when they looked at Wang Lu. Why did such a talented disciple speak irresponsibly and say such a thing? Among them, Feng Yin Daoist master was the most embarrassed. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. His eloquence had always been mediocre, and he was not eloquent. Moreover, he also felt that the problem of Wang Lu was quite tricky. After all, Wang Lu's predecessor was that person. What would Feng Yin say about him? When he was tangled, Feng Yin turned his head and saw that not far away, Wang Wu was sitting on a futon with a plate of melon seeds in her hand, watching with interest. She looked like she was watching a good show, which immediately made him angry. In his primordial spirit, Feng Yin roared, "Wang Wu!" Wang Wu's whole body quivered and she spilled half of the melon seeds. "What's wrong with me? Look at the good disciple you've taught. What the hell, what does this have to do with me? Don't just sit on it." Wang Wu retorted angrily. However, as soon as she finished her sentence, Feng Yin blocked all her words. "Do you still want the elder's position or not? Damn you, you abusing your power, bitch. You're ruthless. Just you wait." In her primordial spirit, Wang Wu spat on Feng Yin's behavior of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Then, she glanced at Wang Lu, who had fallen asleep, and her heart was filled with hatred. "You bitch, you actually pushed everything to me and slept alone." But, things still had to be done. After all, he was Wang Lu. Therefore, Wang Wu put on a smile and stood up. "Big shots, please don't take it seriously. Wang Lu's words carry no harm." A true monarch snorted. "The great King Pill Enlightened Master is also considered a child?" Wang Wu curled her lips. "He's a virgin, how can he not be counted?" Pooh. At that moment, a true monarch almost vomited blood. Wang Lu is a virgin? Wang Wu said, "Well, if you want to be serious, I can't be 100% sure. Anyway, I haven't used it." "Nonsense. You're master and disciple, how can you cross the line?" Wang Wu raised her eyebrows. "What's wrong with master and disciple?" In many sects, grandfather-grandson relationships, and even multiple grandfather-grandson relationships are very popular. Master and disciple relationships are simply plain soup and white noodles. Really, what era are you still so inflexible? You? You're a true elder of a supreme sect, how can you say such disgraceful words? With her hands on her hips, Wang Wu laughed with great momentum. "Ha ha ha. We cultivators cultivate the immortal Tao to begin with. What's the big deal about saying disgraceful words? If you don't even dare to speak, how can you become an immortal? You're being unreasonable." Wang Wu stuck out her chest again. "I'm a woman. It's only right for me to be unreasonable. If you're not convinced, why don't you castrate yourself and stand on the same level as me? But I'll still defeat you with my rich experience." "You." Seeing that Wang Wu was getting more and more excited, the true monarch who was quarreling with her turned livid and had to use his immortal heart to suppress his anger. On the other side, Feng Yin Daoist master really knelt down. "Fifth junior sister, do a good deed and stop your supernatural power. If you continue, our Lingjian school's reputation will be completely gone." "Damn, didn't you tell me to say it in the beginning? You're so fickle, you're more like a woman than I am." Seeing that the quarrel was about to get out of hand, true monarch he too sighed. "Okay, stop arguing. Why do you have to do this for an unimportant question? He Tu's words were still effective. Although the true monarchs were angry, they restrained themselves and stopped talking. They just glared at Wang Wu fiercely and decided to teach her a lesson in the future. As for Wang Lu, he really needed to be careful in the future. It was true that he was talented, but the more talented a person was, the more ideas he had, and the more difficult it was to control him. Once something went wrong, it would be a big problem that would hurt the union of 10,000 immortals. We don't have too many opportunities to waste on questioning each other. If you suspect someone, don't use him. Since we've chosen Wang Lu, let him do it. If we're on guard against him, what's the use of him? After he too finished speaking, he looked at his side. Led by Xian Mo, dozens of Dixian people had already walked into the field from the rostrum. He said, "It seems that Dixian friends can't wait any longer. Everyone, follow me to complete the last part." The last part of the opening ceremony was the joint blood oath between the Wanxian League and Dixian to ensure the effectiveness of this competition. Since it was said that the grand competition would be used to determine the dominance of the future war against the fallen immortals, there must be a restrictive measure. For example, if they lost in the competition, on the surface, they bowed to the opponent, but in secret, they only cared about their own interests, which would eventually lead to mutual distrust and even mutual hostility between the two sides. What was the point of this grand competition? It was absolutely necessary to sign a binding contract on both sides. And the signing of this contract was arranged at the last part of the opening ceremony, which was in the central arena of Immortal One area. The two sides who entered the arena to sign the contract were all 121 Dixian people who were resuscitated from the Tomb of Immortals and 147 high-level elders who represented the will of the entire Wanxian League. 100 of them came from the Heavenly Sage Hall of the Wanxian League, which was also the highest authority of the Wanxian League. The other 47 were the so-called Evil Path. These 200 people entered the arena at the same time. The pressure generated by their existence alone made the arena overwhelmed and shook violently. The grassland, which had previously carried the whole performance of the opening ceremony, cracked in an instant. Thousands of bottomless cracks crisscrossed and bloomed on the ground, like a gorgeous flower of death. The blue sky was mercilessly torn, the stars fell, and the sky collapsed, revealing a dark void. However, soon, the space in the arena began to expand rapidly until it reached its limit, barely digesting the pressure of these more than 200 peak cultivators. However, at this time, there was no tangible thing in the arena. More than 200 people stood in the dark void, each emitting a faint glimmer of light. After the two sides silently confronted each other for a moment, Hichu Daoran took a step forward from the crowd of the Wanxian League. On the other side, the man in black who claimed to be the sinner also quietly appeared and came to the front of He Tuesday. The two of them each represented a side. When their eyes met, they both felt a vast and majestic power that was close to the power of the heavens. The man in black was slightly startled, and then nodded and praised, "You are indeed worthy to be the leader of the 9 regions cultivators." He too said, "There are many capable people in 9 regions. Chapter 638. What the hell is that picture? In the square of B3 area, Shu Si raised his head high, puzzled and irritable. Not long ago, he was still moved by the love story of Jing Shilu and Aluo. Who would have thought that the story would come to an abrupt end? A man in black jumped out and said that the previous story was a hoax, and the truth was a disgusting tragedy that made people want to vomit last night's dinner. At that time, the whole square was filled with shouts that shook the sky, and the momentum was really impressive. And most of them were cursing and insulting the man in black. It was a very simple truth. If someone suddenly jumped out and tried to overthrow that person's perception without any hard evidence, being scolded was inevitable. Although the man in black came up with a subversive story, there was no hard evidence to support that story. Of course, on the other hand, Wang Lu also had no evidence to prove that the story of those crosstalk actors was true. However, did this world need so much evidence? Everyone was busy in the city of immortals, each pursuing their own ideals. The life of this group of crosstalk actors was a kind of entertainment, just for fun, who cared about whether it was true or false. As for Shu Si, he didn't care at all which of the two stories was true. For him, it didn't matter whether Jing Shirlu was born for love or the shovel crosstalk actor Jing Shirlu was born for love. Which one was more interesting, he was more willing to support. In comparison, of course, Jing Shirlu who was born for love was more interesting. Therefore, Xu Si also hated the man in black for interrupting the story, which caused him to be unable to see the life and death separation of Jing Shirlu and Aluo. However, before everyone could scold the man in black enough, they saw that the picture in the signboard on the square changed. More than 200 people entered the arena from two directions, and then the world collapsed and returned to the void. In the void, he too, and the black-robed man exchanged their hands and formed a 9 regions map that combined the heaven and the earth. Xu Si had never heard of the famous 9 regions map, nor could he understand the mysterious means of a peak supreme and an ancient earth immortal. He could only look at them in bewilderment. It was said that the scene just now was a blood oath, but he didn't see anyone shed blood, so how could the oath be made? Or could it be that the great cultivators no longer had red blood flowing in their veins? Humph, you ignorant fool, you don't even recognize the 9 provinces map? Xu Si subconsciously replied, why should I know what the 9 regions map is? Ah. Dead face, why is it you? Halfway through his words, the little mouse recognized that the voice behind him was his current boss, Dead Face. He was so shocked that his soul almost flew out. To be honest, this dead-faced man was not a bad person. He had always been very good to him, but once he made a mistake, his punishment was merciless. This time, he was caught slacking off, so he would at least be scolded. However, unexpectedly, Dead Face didn't seem to notice that Xu Si was being lazy at this time. Instead, he explained with a sinking voice, 9 regions map is the most valuable treasure of Xingjing sect, which reflects the ambition of Xingjing sect to rule the 9 regions. The design idea of the 9 regions map is to treat the 9 regions as a complete magical treasure, and then refine a central magical treasure that can control this magical treasure. Hearing this, Xu Si couldn't believe it. Control the entire 9 regions? Xingjing sect people were really ambitious. Now that Supreme he too has the 9 regions map, could it be that the 9 regions is already in the palm of his hand? Xingjing sect people are ambitious, and they have been so for thousands of years. Dead Face said and then shook his head. However, wanting to refine the entire 9 regions into their own magical treasure is just a fantasy of Xingjing sect people. Supreme he too's cultivation base is unprecedented, and he also has the support of Xingjing sect people's thousands of years of 9 regions strategy. However, this 9 regions map is still in its embryonic form. It can barely sense the changes in the situation on the 9 regions, but it is extremely difficult to exert a direct influence on the 9 regions. However, being able to see the world with one map is enough to be called a top-quality immortal treasure. Xu Si asked, then what's the matter with this immortal treasure now? Why did it become a blood oath? It's very simple. Today's 9 regions map is used as a carrier. The elders of the Wanxian League side took out a part of their primordial spirit and entrusted it to the 9 regions map. The same is true for the Dixian side. They extracted a bit of their immortal spirit and entrusted it to the 9 regions map. This is like a common hostage for both sides. The contract based on this is more effective than any oath, so it's called a blood oath. In fact, apart from this blood oath, there is no other means that can restrain so many top cultivators at the same time. Xu Si seemed to understand and asked, I heard that there's a big demon heart oath. The big demon heart oath can be avoided. The Wanxian League side alone has a successful precedent. It's the red and white boy who gave you the compass. When he condensed the king pill, he swallowed the big demon heart oath. And at the level of Dixian, a bit of immortal spirit is enough to break the entanglement of the demon heart, so the big demon heart oath is basically a joke to them. Very well, then what's going to happen next? Next. With the progress of the grand competition, the two sides will divide the primordial spirit and immortal spirit in the 9 regions map according to the points obtained from the victory. Chapter 639. What the F***CK, who are these two people? Is the original body of Supreme He 2 actually a 2-person rotation? Moreover, it's a man and a woman. So, the true gender of Supreme He too should actually be, yin and yang person? F*ck off. Your mother is the yin and yang person. F*ck, you people from Xingjing sect can do it, but we can't say it? Look at it yourself, isn't that a man and a woman? Inside and outside the city of immortals, people who saw the situation in the arena through various channels fell into great shock. The mystery of Xian Mo's great immortal technique yin and yang division might not be clearly seen by everyone. However, Hichu Doran's upper and lower body were divided into two parts, which was obvious to all. It was not uncommon for cultivators to have an incarnation technique, but it was quite rare to see a man and a woman with different genders. After all, each incarnation came from the same source. If a man could have two kinds of avatars, didn't it mean that there was a female component in the source? This kind of situation was not unheard of, but when it fell on the head of the number one person in 9 regions, it was inevitably shocking. Could it be that under the serious face of Hichu Daoran, there was a woman's delicate heart? However, unlike the dumbfounded audience outside the arena, Xian Mo, as a Dixian, understood the significance of Hichu Doran's yin and yang incarnation. Of course, he too was not a yin and yang combination, or a delicate mind, but he had begun to transcend the human level and set foot in a higher realm. The definition and concept of male, female, and gender were only valid for the individual. In a group, gender was meaningless. For example, in a village of 100 households, half male and half female, was the village male or female? And he too began to break away from the individual category and sublimated himself into a group. Therefore, after the yin and yang division, there would be 2 complete men and women. The male was strong and firm, symbolizing the pure and untainted masculinity, while the female was soft and yin, like a fish in the water in the chaotic world. Is this your path? He too's incarnation that was separated into the yin and yang realms didn't answer, but he didn't need to. At the peak of the unity stage, half a step away from the Mahayana realm, every move and word contained his own unique Tao. As for the Dixian Xian Mo who was half a level higher, he could completely understand this kind of Tao. For a moment, Xian Mo was stunned, but he was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he said softly, "People in the mountains are immortals." Since ancient times, the transcendence of the path of immortals has always been the result of comprehending the Tao of heaven and earth and then ascending to immortality. During this period of time, they would personally distance themselves from human affairs. Therefore, it is often said that immortals do not eat the food of mortals. Yet, you're doing the opposite, using the path of all living beings to prove the great Tao. No wonder you're only at the pinnacle of the body integration stage, half-step Mahayana, with your strength. You've already given up on the ordinary immortal Tao. Although his voice was not loud, it was like a clap of thunder in spring, causing countless people inside and outside the arena to be stunned. Supreme Hichu had already given up on the ordinary immortal Tao. He was the number one immortal cultivator in 9 regions. If even he had given up on the immortal Tao, didn't that mean that there was a serious defect in the immortal cultivation of modern people? After the age of chaos, for thousands of years, there were countless capable people in 9 regions, but none of them were able to break through the last hurdle and ascend to immortality. Many people's immortal heart was filled with shock. Especially those who had stepped into the body integration stage and had been diligently cultivating for the Mahayana stage and the heavenly tribulation to ascend to immortality, they were even more shocked. Only the several elders of the Lingjian school were slightly startled after hearing this. A certain lazy-looking master of Nanfei's Peak, after hearing this, his eyes flashed, the corner of his mouth hooked up into a smile, and then he nodded slightly. Unexpectedly, the brain of that old bureaucrat is not dead yet. On the other side, in the center of the whirlpool, he too had to open his mouth. This has nothing to do with the immortal Tao. The young man in the Yang realm said, "I am the sect leader of Xingjing sect, the leader of the Wanxian League. Therefore, it is not my way to be good alone." Upon hearing this, Xian Mo was startled again. "You can't be good alone?" A moment later, Xian Mo sighed. As the leader of hundreds of millions of people, I must shoulder the mission and responsibility for these hundreds of millions of people. So, no matter how good the way to be good alone is, it's not good enough. That's why I chose such a way. So that's how it is. You chose to refine the 9 regions map, this kind of immortal treasure, because of this consideration. The 2 incarnations of He Two nodded, and then no longer spoke. Each of them operated their own power, ready to fight with Dixian in this yin and yang realm. However, Xian Mo suddenly raised her hand. I didn't expect that after more than 10,000 years, there would still be people like you in 9 regions. In order to express my respect, I will give this game to you. After saying that, Xian Mo's figure slowly disappeared from the arena. After she left, the yin and yang boundary in the arena also disappeared. The clear and turbid qi began to mix again, but it didn't return to chaos. Instead, it gave birth to the sun, moon, stars, mountains, and rivers. In the blink of an eye, the arena returned to the original green mountains. In a short period of time, the arena experienced a small chaos creation, but the overall structure was not chaotic at all, and there was no sign of collapse at all. This also made the spectators deeply sigh with Dixian's means. Xian Mo's yin and yang division was already beyond imagination, but now it seemed that the person who built this arena was even more brilliant. However, what was more worth sighing with emotion was Dixian's temperament. What did she just say? She gave this game to us? Did she admit defeat? On the rostrum, the red-robed ancestor was extremely surprised. Just because brother He Two is serious and responsible, she admitted defeat? Isn't this too much of a child's play? On the side, Supreme Tianluan chuckled and said, I'm afraid things are not that simple. There are other inside stories that we can't know. Let's wait and see for the time being. It's not a bad thing to win the first battle. The red-robed ancestor froze for a moment and then turned his eyes to the side. He saw that Dixian's side was also tangled, but they didn't seem to be surprised by this. Obviously, they had expected that Xian Mo might choose to give up and admit defeat. Oh, Brother Tianluan, unexpectedly, as the leader of a famous bookworm sect, you're actually very sophisticated. Supreme Tianluan smiled again, and there was a bit of pride in his smile as he said, the so-called human relationship, when deconstructed in detail, is nothing more than calculation and choice. As long as you refer to the various states of the world, make thousands of sets of formulas, and compare all the possible situations one by one, you can do whatever you want. Moreover, according to the needs, you can freely switch between various forms, temperament, and experience. If you want to be sophisticated in human relationships, you can also be full of vigor. This is a set of method that I was able to master 50 years ago. Unfortunately, one must have a supreme-level primordial spirit to be able to master this set of method flawlessly. Otherwise, I would have popularized it a long time ago, so that the world wouldn't laugh at my 10,000 art sect people for not understanding human relationships. Upon hearing this, the red-robed ancestor clicked his tongue. You 10,000 art sect people are really monsters. Supreme Tianluan said, immortal cultivation has always been like this. Although the main path is unified, until the day of ascension, the immortal path is like a tree. At the beginning, there's not much difference, but the more it grows and extends, the farther the branches and leaves are. When the immortal path reaches its peak, it has long been far from the so-called normal state of the world. The so-called monster is nothing more than a stage that is too high to be understood by the world. The red-robed ancestor chuckled. Your 10,000 arts sect has always been like this since 10,000 years ago, refusing to admit that you're just a bookworm. However, when it comes to you, you're actually able to create a set of human relationship method that has never been done before. It's really rare. Red-robed Daoist friend, if you're interested, we might as well exchange pointers some other day. The two chatted happily and gradually forgot about the outcome of the match. Although the outcome of Hichu Doran's first match was important, it was not enough for the two supremes to worry about it. On the other side, the Dixian Daoran had different expressions. Xian Mo walked from the arena to the rostrum and apologetically said, I'm sorry, I lost the first match. But I really can't do anything to him. At this moment, even the most harsh Biyao didn't speak, but just silently turned his back. The one who had the best friendship with Xian Mo, Dixie and Daoran, came over and patted her on the shoulder. We all understand. If it were me, I would also abstain. After all, it's too similar. Biyao coldly snorted. Similar my ass. With that, he turned around and walked away. The victory in the first battle should have been great news for the union of 10,000 immortals. Although the points gained from a victory were negligible compared to the entire competition schedule, as the first match, the symbolic meaning was much more important. In the battle between the Supremes and the Dixian Daoran, Dixian basically had no strength restriction. In other words, the victory of Hichu meant that the gap between the peak strength of the Wuxia League cultivators and the Dixian Daoran might not be as far as people thought. However, those who had witnessed the battle with their own eyes could not feel happy. The gap was not that far? Perhaps. As the number one person in 9 regions, it was not surprising that Supreme Hichu had a powerful trump card. Over the years, those who had been in contact with him had guessed that his strength was far stronger than it looked. But that was Hichu. So what if it was someone else? In the face of the world-splitting yin and yang division, how many people could guarantee that they could withstand it? At least, when Xian Mo used this immortal technique, many of the Supremes who witnessed it from the sidelines changed their complexion. For example, the famous mad dog from Xingjing sect, Supreme Tianyu. At the moment of yin and yang division, he was stunned and his body went stiff. Obviously, he absolutely could not withstand that move. And among the Supremes, Tianyu was famous for his actual combat ability. After doing all kinds of dirty work in Xingjing sect, his actual fighting strength was absolutely not a disgrace to the name of Supreme. Even he was like this, let alone the others. Let alone after dealing with the Dixian Daoran for so long, they more or less knew that Xian Mo's strength was far from the top among the Dixian Daoran. In this match, the other side handed over the victory. If they didn't, what would the result be? Sure enough, trying to win in the high-level fight was as difficult as ascending to the sky. It was the right choice to put the strategic focus on the fight between King Pil and Yuanying stage. However, had the King Pil and Yuanying stage who were still in training made enough progress? Thinking of this, there were many people who were worried. However, at this time, on the rostrum, a lazy voice spread throughout the city of immortals through the equipment in the venue. I've witnessed a wonderful fight. My emerald green bamboo sword is simply unbearably hungry. I wonder if you can add a plug so that I can solve this hunger problem first. With that, a woman in white stood up. In one step, she crossed the boundary between the rostrum and the arena and stood in the middle of the venue. She held a bamboo stick in her hand. This time, it didn't even have the shape of a sword, but a stick. And such a unique weapon naturally couldn't belong to anyone else. Wuxia League, Lingjian School, Master of Non-Phase Peak, Wang Wu. Please enlighten me. Holding the sword, Wang Wu was no longer as lazy as before. Although the weapon in her hand didn't have the shape of a sword, the king pill was spinning in her eyes, and the sword intent was awe-inspiring. The first day of the weekend has passed just like this. I'm so happy. Please pay attention to the WeChat public platform's search for His Majesty the King. Thank you everyone. Chapter 640. Wang Wu. After the woman in white stepped onto the stage, many people uttered a surprised voice. What does she want to do? Who let her go up there? She's just a little king pill, why does she want to be in the limelight at this time? However, after a moment of doubt, there was more support. *T, brother, don't talk nonsense. If others hear it, we will all be implicated by you. She's not only the Daoist king pill, but also the popular idol Murong who has swept 9 regions. She has a lot of fans, many of whom are supreme-level powerhouses. It's easy for her to crush us. Tisk, I'm telling the truth. Even if it's in front of a supreme, it would still be the same. She's just a little king pill, how could she act so recklessly? Little king pill? You two idiots, do you really think that she got her fame by virtue of her face? The title of the #1 king pill in 9 regions is much earlier than that Murong. If she's still a little king pill, then there's no king pill in 9 regions to look at. You guys have eyes but don't recognize her. This grand competition is held because of her. When the Wanxian League handed over the plan of the grand competition to Dixian for the first time, if there was no Wang Wu's victory, Dixian would not have accepted it at all. And the battle where Wang Wu crushed Bai Zhe of Dixian with a near-absolute advantage completely established her reputation as the #1 king pill in 9 regions. At present, the 3 major evaluation halls in 9 regions have listed her as 100 people below supreme level, which is comparable to peak deity stage. As far as I know, in the king pill level event of this grand competition, she is the absolute leader no matter how she is ranked. If you think you have the qualification to underestimate her, you might as well find an opportunity to fight her. It is said that with her temper, it's not easy to fight her. As long as you open your mouth to bet 10,000 spirit stones, she will definitely put down everything in her hands to fight you. Peak deity stage? Impossible. She was just a Taoist king pill. Even if she could challenge someone at a higher level, it didn't make sense for her to jump 2 levels at once. Also, if he really is an expert at the peak of the soul formation stage, why would he lower his status for 10,000 spirit stones? Perhaps it's a peculiar hobby of a capable person. Moreover, I heard that the mysterious Sky Mansion once found someone to roughly calculate Wang Wu's income. Because she haggles over every penny, her ability to make money is quite good. If you calculate her income in recent decades, she can become a famous tycoon in the entire Wanxian League. But I've always heard that she's poor. Could it be that her spending power is especially strong? Compared to her income, her extravagant spending is nothing. That's why it's said that it's a strange hobby of capable people. Chapter 641. In the fighting arena, the change could be described as rapid as the hare rising and the falcon descending. After Wizard said a string of despairing words, the sudden change dazzled everyone's eyes. Wang Wu, who was supposed to die under the falling stars, miraculously came back from the dead and fought a series of ridiculously fast offensive and defensive battles with her opponent. Not to mention the King Pill level audience, many Taoist masters of Yuanying stage also felt their vision blurred. When they could see clearly, the two of them had already had a short truce and were talking to each other hundreds of feet away. Did you see that I was fake from the beginning? Wang Wu stretched out her foot to kick the bamboo stick on the ground and held it in the air while saying, "Of course I couldn't see it. At first, I thought that the idiot Bai Zhe was finally enlightened and was willing to throw away the flashy but impractical negation golden seal and use a more solid method to fight me. But, TSK, what came was a series of illusion." The smile of the opposite child was even more brilliant. "So, you didn't see my real body at the beginning? Then how did you block my illusion when you didn't guard against it in advance?" Wang Wu sighed. "It's very simple, you've played with it." The child was somewhat puzzled. "Played with it? My illusion should be perfect for you at your current stage." "Yes, your illusion is indeed exquisite. Relying on my non-phase method's mind-cleansing effect alone, I can't see the flaws of your illusion intuitively. However, the effect of your illusion is too exaggerated, which makes people instinctively resist believing it." Too exaggerated? Yes, how could there be a King Pill level cultivator whose attack power is stronger than my defense? This is simply impossible. Wang Wu shrugged her shoulders with a "how could you be so stupid" smile. Even though the child's smile was almost instinctive, at this moment, he couldn't smile anymore. "Is this your reason? Is it not enough? If one day you see the sun rising from the west, won't you doubt the authenticity of this world? For you, is non-phase method so indestructible?" Wang Wu said, "You can try. So that's how it is. I didn't know that your belief was so strong. That's why the illusion failed and you saw through the flaw." The child shook his head. "It's the first time I've seen someone like you." Wang Wu said, actually, it's not that fast. At first, I thought that Biyao had changed tactics and abandoned the flashy negation immortal technique. It wasn't until I heard your nonsense that I realized that you weren't Biyao himself. If it was any other idiot who saw me being destroyed by the starlight, he would have laughed to the heavens and said that he was invincible. How could he have the intelligence to come up with a lie to hurt people's hearts? The same 1,000 cuts reappeared on the boy's body, and his body, which was much smaller than Wang Wu's, could not withstand such pressure at all. Like a watermelon being smashed by a heavy hammer, the ground was covered with dark red. In the blood, the child slowly condensed into the shape of his original body, but there was a bit of confusion on his face. The next moment, he stretched out his right hand and moved his 5 fingers. Instantly, the earth trembled like the surface of water. Then, all the rocks shattered into sand, and everything within a radius of 50 miles sank into the ground. This spell wasn't launched quickly, but Wang Wu didn't dodge it and was directly buried in the soft sand. A moment later, an emerald green bamboo pierced straight out from the bottom of the infinitely deep sand hole. At the same time, Wang Wu appeared in front of the child like a ghost, and her slender white hands wrapped in yellow sand. Enough. The child roared and flew backward, pulling away from his opponent. You dare to use illusion to counter me? Wang Wu curled her lips. Huh? You actually saw through it so quickly? I was going to play with you for a while. As she spoke, her figure began to become erratic, and there were also thousands of arms on her back, exactly the same as the child. At this moment, countless people inside and outside the field fell into shock again. My goodness. He actually dares to use illusion against Mirage Boy. On the Dixian side of the rostrum, a young girl who looked no more than 20 years old stood up and looked at the field incredulously. As a close friend of the smiling child, she couldn't be more familiar with him. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that his illusion was superb. In the complete Dixian realm, it wasn't an exaggeration to describe his supernatural power. In the peak state, his illusion could forcibly distort the boundary between reality and illusion, and a word could even loosen the great Tao of heaven and earth. Such an amazing illusion, half of it came from the inheritance of the ancient immortal world, and the other half came from the special bloodline in his body. Although Mirage Boy looked like a pink child, his essence was mostly a non-human creature, close to an immortal beast. In theory, even if he were to lower his cultivation, no one in the same realm would be able to resist the erosion of this natural illusionary master. Mirage Boy was the trump card of the Dixian side. They had previously carefully analyzed the fight between Biyao and Wang Wu and determined that it was difficult to win the head-on fight against that barbarian woman. Therefore, they sent Mirage Boy. Who would have thought that? Wang Wu actually went against the heavens' will and could use illusion against Mirage Boy. Fellow Daoist Feng Yin, isn't your Lingjian school hiding too deep? Not to mention that Kid Wang Lu, this master of non-phase peak, really hides her ability. The Mirage Boy didn't know Wang Wu's story, but with the instinct of Dixian, he changed into the appearance that could most tease the opponent's heartstrings. There were always some people who knew that it was an illusion, but they still couldn't bear to do it. The illusionary child had used this move to defeat countless strong enemies 10,000 years ago. This time, it was likely that it would not be an exception. For women, love was always a killer move. Indeed, long time no see. Sure enough, Wang Wu sighed and unconsciously put down the 100 transformation bamboo stick in her hand. Then, she stepped forward in front of Ouyang Shang. Her slender palm clenched into a fist, and under the opponent's incredulous gaze, she fiercely punched the bridge of his nose. While he was stunned, his nose was bleeding like a fountain. Ha ha ha, I wanted to play like this for a long time. Unfortunately, he died too early, and there were no bones left. I couldn't even whip his corpse. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Chapter 642. Good punch. Under Wang Wu's punch, Mirage Boy's king pill body and protective sword energy couldn't resist at all. In an instant, the bridge of his nose shattered into pieces, and his head became dizzy. Even the martial monks who were best at Vajravidyaraja in the Zen sect couldn't have such a hard fist. Mirage Boy suspected that if he was hit a few more times, the whole illusion would collapse because of this. However, this was necessary pain. The illusion that disintegrated the mind rarely worked in one hit, and the vicious seeds needed a long time to germinate. During this period, it was common for the opponent to instinctively question and even kill him. Mirage Boy once incarnated into a mother's long-dead son in front of her. At first, the mother didn't move, but after seeing that it was an illusion, she directly chose to attack. However, under the painstaking efforts of the illusionary child, the other party was finally unable to resist the erosion of the illusionary technique and revealed a fatal flaw. And that time, the illusionary child used a whole month's time, during which he experienced countless tortures of hovering between life and death. However, Mirage Boy never expected that the battle with Wang Wu would be so difficult. Under the restriction of the great vow of the heart demons, she shouldn't have the ability to take the initiative to attack, but he didn't expect that she would throw such a powerful punch. Sure enough, for this pair of master and disciple, the great vow of the heart demons was useless. After the punch, Wang Wu's face was full of joy. While wiping her fist with a handkerchief, she said, don't misunderstand, I've always followed my oath seriously. I won't take the initiative to hurt people with immortal spells, unless I'm hurt by the opponent and I return the favor. Mirage Boy was angry and amused at the same time. I didn't do anything just now. I just said hello to you, and you rewarded me with a face-breaking punch. Wang Wu saw through his thoughts and sneered, do you think you're innocent? Do you know how seriously your illusion hurt my pure girl's heart? Mirage Boy had to use a lot of patience to hold back from cursing out loud. Do you think you're worthy of a girl's heart? I've been cultivating for almost 1,000 years, but I've never seen a pure girl who eats, drinks, and gambles. If it weren't for the fact that maintaining illusions had become second nature to him for thousands of years, Wang Wu's words would have almost destroyed the Mirage Boy's illusions. However, Dixian had the state of mind of a Dixian after all. The Mirage Boy quickly extinguished the anger in his heart and once again immersed his mind into the illusion. He gathered up his immortal heart that had been shaken back and forth, and gradually let himself enter the world of Ouyang Shang. Regardless of whether they were pure or not, a woman's heart would always be infatuated. Of course, my existence is only temporary. Perhaps when the illusionary child dispels the illusion, I will vanish into thin air. But before that, we still have time to make love and leave behind a crystal that will never vanish into thin air. Junior sister, I'm looking forward to what our child will look like. Shut up. The sharp sword light interrupted Ouyang Shang's incessant speech, but he quickly found the opportunity to speak again. Junior sister, I can understand the resistance in your heart. We haven't seen each other for more than 100 years, and the first time you meet, you come to make love. This kind of behavior of a beast in heat is indeed too rough, but time really waits for no man. I can still barely control this illusion, but after all, the illusion is the origin, and I'm just a derivative. The time I can last is very limited, so we might as well take a step back. As he said that, Ouyang Shang took out a small porcelain bottle from his pocket. This is the life essence that I just extracted. Quickly integrate it into your body, and then yin and yang will be born. This is the supreme principle of heaven and earth. The new life will break away from the illusion and will no longer be controlled by the Mirage Boy. That will be a child that truly belongs to you and me, and will be the continuation of our lives. Another sharp sword light slashed across, directly cutting open Ouyang Shang's thick defense, causing him to be slightly flustered. Hey, don't be so stubborn. This opportunity is really rare. Be careful not to break the porcelain bottle. The life essence is not very easy to extract. Ridiculous. As Wang Wu said that, she suddenly stopped what she was doing and sighed. You idiot, haven't you considered that the reason you can maintain your existence is precisely because I didn't let you have your way? As long as I don't comply, the Mirage Boy can't stop the illusion for a moment, and this illusory reunion will continue, until I can no longer hold on. As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar outside. What's wrong with fifth junior sister? Is she planning to give up? I feel that this can't be blamed on her. In these 100 years, her heart has been the one that can't let go. And not to mention fifth junior sister, if it were me, how could I bear to personally cut off the foundation of eldest senior brother's existence? Even if she knows that all of this is just a dream, it's good to be able to dream for a moment longer. However, fifth junior sister doesn't seem to be such a weak-willed person. That's because eldest senior brother isn't here. Think about it, if eldest senior brother could live until now, how would she become like this? That's right, back then, she was actually the most naive in terms of feelings. Several Heavenly Sword Hall elders discussed for a while, and their hearts gradually sank. This time, the opponent's illusion was too cunning. As Ouyang Shang spoke, he placed the last plate into the cupboard. Then, he raised his head and looked at the illusory and bright moon in the arena. I regret that I can't really rely on you, regret that I can't be with you, regret that I can't be with you, for you on the road of immortal cultivation, regret that I can only spend this wonderful time with you in this illusion. Regret that there are still too many words in my heart that I don't have time to say to you. Regret. You and I are close at hand, but as far as the horizon. With that, Ouyang Shang shook his head in a self-deprecating manner and sighed, Junior sister, I actually want to hug you, but I can't do it anymore. Wang Wu said softly, how could I not want to? For more than 100 years, there is not a moment when I don't look forward to you reappearing in front of me, and I'm even willing to pay any price. Ouyang Shang said, I'm very happy to hear that you always remember me, but I'm even more happy to see you come out of your memories and see that you didn't make a stupid choice. In this way, it was not in vain for me to work hard and come back from the dead to suppress the illusion for you. Wang Wu smiled. That idiot only thought that a perfect simulation of a person could make the other party lower their guard, but he didn't think that if the person he perfectly simulated was far beyond his control, what would happen? He actually wanted to use the illusion to enslave you. He really thought too much. Ouyang Shang said, however, I have almost reached my limit after persisting until now. So, it's time to say goodbye. Alas, only at this time, time will pass particularly fast. Is there anything else you want to say to me? Wang Wu smiled and said, for more than 100 years, I have said everything in front of your grave, you can go down and think about it. But you, is there anything else you want to say to me? Ouyang Shang touched his chin a little awkwardly. One last question, you can think of it as me gossiping. What I'm more curious about is, who is the person who helped you out of the shadow? Wang Wu's smile became more and more brilliant. Can you see that I have a new lover? What do you think? Most likely a handsome, and talented young man like me? Wang Wu shook her head. TSK, it can't be a seemingly deep uncle, right? Your taste shouldn't have degenerated to that point, right? Wang Wu continued to shake her head, and her expression was obviously a little angry. Guessed wrong? Damn, wait, let me confirm first, is it a man or a woman? Wang Wu silently put her hand on the hilt of the mysterious frost sword. Well, I can't guess, you'd better just say the answer directly. Ouyang Shang had an expression of giving up treatment, and at the same time, his figure began to disappear little by little from his feet. This illusion of turning the guest into the host had finally come to an end. Chapter 644. *T, can't we see the situation in the arena? Yeah, the picture is completely stuck. We can only see that the child has turned into a young man in a red and white robe. After that, the picture hasn't changed for a month. What the hell is going on? Who is responsible for the repair of this sign? Just now, a golden armored soldier passed by. Did you report it to him? *T, that golden armored soldier can't even understand human language. What's the use of reporting it to him? If you talk too much, he will warn you not to interfere with official business. I say, is there anyone who is good at refining to go up and see how to repair it? It's useless. All the equipment in this city of immortals is the work of Dixian. let's not talk about whether we can repair it or not. If we casually dismantle it, the golden armored soldier will regard it as a hostile act and stop it on the spot. Thinking of the behavior pattern of the golden armored soldier and stopping hostile behavior, people felt creeped out, and no one mentioned the problem of repairing the sign. I wish everyone a happy new year. Asking for a few golden keyboard votes, not asking for a ranking, at least not too ugly. Secondly, tomorrow at 7:00 in the evening, the Dota 2 book friend competition will start on time. At that time, there will be a live broadcast on Douyu. Welcome to watch. Room number 131186, Dota 2 ID 1721911215. Alas, it's a pity that we have no chance to watch it live. I heard that the central arena of Immortal 1 area contains a space magical ability that can accommodate millions of spectators. But if your level is not high enough, you can't enter. I wonder who on our side has reached the standard. Some time ago, Master Huasu went to try it, but he was battered by the barrier. He is, after all, a middle-level Yuaniing stage expert, but he can't even enter the door. Us small fries in the foundation establishment and chi cultivating stage can forget about it. Alas, to be able to see Supreme He 2 and that female Earth Immortal's magical ability for free, as well as the fight between Supreme Non-Phase and that boy is not a loss at all. Yeah, after a month, I still have a bit of lingering fear when I think about that yin and yang separation method. This is still seen through the broadcast of the sign. If I was there, I'm afraid my Tao heart would be gone with just a glance. So, you're saying that not allowing unauthorized people to enter is a form of protection for us? Who can say for sure? Alas, when I heard that the competition was about to begin, I traveled thousands of miles from the eastern border region to the southern heaven region. Who knew that when I came to the City of Immortals, I'd been waiting for half a year, but I haven't seen the competition officially start. Sigh, although there is food and water here, and the spiritual chi is enough for cultivation, I still feel like something is missing. He pointed to the sky outside the house and said, the screen has been stuck for a month, and in this month, the high-level people on both sides have never appeared again. It's really inexplicable. Don't tell me there's something wrong with the arena? Dead Face coldly humphed and said, if there's really a problem, how could the entire City of Immortals be so peaceful? It's just that there are people in the arena who don't want outsiders to see the details. Most likely, they have some trump card that can't be exposed at will. As for a month, what is it for a fight between experts? I have seen a King Pill level fight that lasted for half a year. Shu Si inwardly scolded, do you think you deserve to see a King Pill level fight? If there's a Daoist master of King Pill, the aftermath would blow you away. However, his words were, then who do you think will win, Daoist Master Non-Phase or that Dixian boy? Humph, that's a stupid question. With that, Dead Face turned around and went back to the house. How could that person lose? At the same time, while many people outside the arena were talking about the situation in the arena, the people in the audience also had different opinions. Because they couldn't see the situation in the arena. Compared with those who watched the broadcast outside the arena, they had only watched a month's worth of heartwarming romance drama. And when the drama ended and the climax came, the picture was also fixed. Hey, why doesn't the person inside move? At first, people thought that this was a sign that the two sides were about to reveal their true intentions, but soon they realized that this was a smokescreen used by the person inside and didn't want to expose what would happen next. It seems that we won. The friend of Mirage Boy smiled leisurely and said, I suggest you admit defeat for the person inside as soon as possible. He too glanced at her and didn't speak, but the red-robed patriarch unceremoniously scolded, bullshit. The person inside is motionless, how do you know that you've won? The girl said, isn't it easy to understand? Why is the picture stagnant? Because your Supreme Non-Phase finally couldn't resist the erosion of illusion and began to open her heart to her true love. So she began to do what she loved to do. If such a scene was exposed to the eyes of the public, I'm afraid it would have a very bad impact on her, right? Although Qian Huan often wins with illusion and is accused of being despicable, he is essentially a very decent person and won't embarrass his opponent too much. Think about it, if Wang Wu has the upper hand, with her temper, she should show off the situation where she has the upper hand, showing off her strength. The girl's words were reasonable, making people completely unable to refute. Several supremes in the Wanxian League suddenly looked at the arena worriedly. It was a pity that this arena was built with long-lost immortal technology, which completely isolated the perception of the outside world, so that they couldn't detect the situation in the arena. I say, he too, why don't we admit defeat first? It's better than letting that child Wang Wu really suffer any humiliation. He too was silent, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Obviously, he also had an idea in his mind. At this moment, an unexpected voice came in. There's no need for that, just wait for the result. Hearing this, the red-robed patriarch was stunned, then turned his head in surprise. Wang Lu, you brat, you're finally awake. Heh, I slept for a whole month. If I didn't wake up, would I be waiting for a princess on a white horse to kiss me? As Wang Lu spoke, he jumped to the front row of the rostrum, leaned forward, and looked at the stagnant scene in the arena with interest. Especially his gaze stayed on the young man in the red and white robe for a long time. The effect of this illusion is not bad, it's almost like the real thing, restoring every detail of this idiot. TSK, this zombie resurrection script is quite powerful. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard the sect elder Lu Xian say angrily, Wang Lu, don't be presumptuous, do you know who that person is? Hearing this, Wang Lu was stunned, then smiled and said, I know, Wang Wu's old lover. He is. Lu Xian was about to reprimand Wang Lu for being so casual, but he was stopped by his senior brother. Although he did not understand why his senior brother stopped him, he still held back and did not say anything. The Dixian girl looked at Wang Lu for a while and said, Hey, are you sure you don't need to admit defeat? Your master may have been pushed down by now. Although everything is an illusion, it may cause irreparable damage to the person himself. Wang Lu grinned. Don't worry, the irreparable damage has already been done more than 150 years ago. The girl was about to say something, but she saw a black shadow flash beside her. On the Dixian side, the real person in charge walked over. Enough, we admit defeat this round. Well, I think there might be some misunderstanding between us master and disciple. PFFF. Hahaha, master, you're so funny. Why are you so nervous like a newlywed wife? Of course, I slept like a log for the past month or so. At that time, I was about to die. How could I have the spare energy to separate my primordial spirit to look outside? It's just a lie. Hahaha, little Lu, you're getting more and more mischievous. You flatter me. How can I be as naughty as a two-timer? F***CK, how much do you know? Master, you're anxious again. I'm just lying to you. Of course I didn't see anything. You little bastard, don't tell me that you recorded the whole thing and just watched the video? Master, how do you know me so well? Don't tell me we knew each other in our previous life? The master and disciple duo chatted cheerfully with a smile that made the hair of others stand on end, and the surrounding temperature continued to drop. Just when the surrounding people felt that they could not stand it anymore, the illusionary child also walked out from the arena. His face was solemn, and the smile on his face was gone. Dixian's side hurriedly interrupted the fight between the master and disciple of non-phase. Thousand illusions, how are you? Phew, it's an eye-opener. As the illusionary child said this, he patted his cheeks and tried to make the smile return to his face. I'm convinced of this battle. Plus, it's beneficial to my illusions. Even if I lost, it's worth it. Before he could finish his words, one of his companions smiled bitterly. Worth it? We've lost 2 games in a row. It's really unexpected that even you can't do anything to that woman. Upon hearing this, Mirage Boy's face turned serious. According to the rules of this grand competition, no one is her opponent. In the future, whenever she appears in the competition, we can just abstain directly. What? Mirage Boy's words made his companions feel inconceivable. Wait a minute. Thousand Illusions naturally saw the confusion of his companions, so he stretched out his hand and an illusion that distorted the cause and effect covered the space. In the eyes of the Wanxian League, they saw that the group of Dixians were still talking with a dignified face, which showed a deep fear of Wang Wu. Although she is King Pill, her real strength is no less than that of peak deity stage. What's more, her mind is invulnerable. If we want to defeat her in the same stage, unless we take out all our cards, we might have a chance of winning, but it's not high. Instead, we would expose our cards in vain. I remember that in most of the matches, the King Pill level matches are the first, followed by Yuanying and deity stage. If she cheats out her cards in the King Pill level matches, it would be too disadvantageous for the later matches. After all, 9 regions is so big, who can guarantee that there is only one person like her? This remark was reasonable. Plus, Mirage Boy's illusion in Dixian stage was flawless, so the Wanxian League did not doubt him and did not pay too much attention to him. However, in fact, what Mirage Boy wanted to say was another thing. In short, I suspect that her King Pill is an outside path. Outside path? Yes, at least not the immortal path that we cultivate. At least, I don't believe that the King Pill in the general sense can be so strong. She just looks like the King Pill. When Mirage Boy finished speaking, the people around him were shocked. Even the man in black stopped and turned around to listen quietly. Is this possible? Xian Mo could not help but ask. This is after the age of chaos, the surrounding spiritual energy is scarce, and the great Tao is also blinded. Even the road to immortality is difficult and bumpy. How could an outside path cultivator reach this point? One person speculated, perhaps it is because the right way is blocked that some people take the unorthodox path. The so-called immortal path is just a narrow path cut out by the powerful people in the age of desolation hundreds of thousands of years ago. After countless generations of later generations, it gradually became the Great Tao. However, it doesn't mean that other paths can't be taken. I have seen with my own eyes that the power of the outside path is not inferior to you and me. It's really surprising that there are still outside path cultivators after the age of chaos. However, at this point, one person suddenly realized something and angrily said, if she really is an outside path cultivator, why would she still pretend to be the King Pill? The previous matches are simply cheating. Mirage Boy shook his head and said, there's no evidence. I've been fighting with her for more than a month, but I can't see through her at all. No matter from which point of view, she's just an ordinary peak King Pill. The operation of her true yuan and the fluctuation of her primordial spirit are far from the ordinary outside path. Therefore, even if we accuse her of cheating, it would be meaningless. Instead, it would make people think that we can't afford to lose. However, this kind of outside path cultivator is almost invincible under the current rules. Even if we go all out, it would only expose our trump card. I suspect that her strength is not yet at its bottom. If we give up all the matches related to her, how many points will we lose? Xian Mo counted with his fingers and said, at most, 510 points, which is irrelevant to the overall situation. Mirage Boy said, well, I also think that's the result. Therefore, we can afford to lose, and there's no need to cause a greater loss for these 500 points. In addition, let the people behind us be more serious when they make their move. These guys are not as bad as we think. Not to mention the number one person in 9 regions, he too. I don't think any of the sect leaders of those super sects are easy to deal with. Moreover, what I care more about is their ability to learn and grow. I was delayed by Wang Wu for more than a month, plus the opening ceremony was forcibly delayed for 3 months. It's a bit long. The man in black said, after the main competition begins, there will be no paper competition. Everyone, do your best, strive to break their morale in the shortest time, and end this farce as soon as possible. If necessary, I will also take action. Black, you also. Upon hearing this, several Dixian people were pleasantly surprised. Only when it's necessary. The man in black said coldly, I'm a sinner, not worthy of your dependence. Don't forget what I've done. On the other side of the rostrum, the people of Wanxian League were not idle. Wang Wu, in your opinion, that mirage boy, before he too's voice fell, Wang Wu waved her hand indifferently and said, there's nothing great about him. In Dixian, he's probably above average, similar to Xian Mo. Upon hearing Wang Wu's words, the people around them were slightly relieved. The true illusion technique of Mirage Boy was really frightening. It was already so powerful in the King Pill realm, so who could resist it in a higher realm? However, since Wang Wu said so, perhaps there were some unknown weaknesses in the actual fight. As long as they could grasp it, they would have a chance to win. You seem to have misunderstood. What I mean is, if we meet him in other competitions in the future, except for me, everyone else can directly forfeit. There's no need to waste any more time. Puff. Wang Wu said seriously, in addition, I suggest that after the main competition begins, we should temporarily send out some weaker players. Why? Because I guess that Dixian intends to end the fight quickly and use the fastest speed to achieve a comprehensive victory in the early stage to destroy our morale and make the situation of the grand competition irreversible. During this period, they will send out all their experts. With our current strength, we can't win. He too asked, if we can't do the fighting, what about the literary fight? It's the same. The other side has Luo Shui Fairy, who is proficient in all kinds of arts and is close to the Tao. It's difficult for us to win in the 4 arts, chess, calligraphy, and painting. In addition, several sub-events in the fighting are similar. There are insurmountable difficulties. The red-robed patriarch asked, how do you know it so well? Of course, they told me. Wang Wu smiled and said, although Mirage Boy is not a core member of Dixian, his illusion technique is superb and he has a lot of information in his hands. Illusionary child, why did he tell you this information? Wang Wu said, of course, it's because he's in an illusion. The real illusion trapped me for a month, but at the same time, how could he not be trapped by the illusion that I bounced back at him? Speaking to this, a happy smile appeared on Wang Wu's face. This fight is really fruitful. Just when he too and the others were stunned and guessed what Wang Wu had gained, they heard Wang Lu say gloomily, yes, it's a fruitful harvest. Damn it, did you see that? Isn't he still being F***ked on stage now? TSK, isn't the scarlet blood poison said to spread blood poison for 1,000 li? Why was it trapped in someone's body and unable to spit it out? The taste of the scarlet blood poison's backlash should be pretty good. I think he's rolling his eyes in pleasure. Yo, he exploded and died. What a dazzling firework. Wang Wu lay on her back and laughed. Huh, why do I feel like you're full of resentment? Did he offend you? Wang Lu said, it's not that I offended him. At that time, I kindly came forward to persuade him not to be fooled by a fool and stand out at this time. As a result, he immediately turned hostile, saying that he was a child and so on. Hee, in the city of immortals, there are not many people who dare to be so rude to me. Wang Wu said with interest, there's actually such a thing. Then how did you deal with it? Humph, Senior Scarlet Blood Poison has been living in seclusion for decades. After this grand competition was widely publicized in 9 regions, he came out to participate in the competition as one of the candidates. To say that he has a lack of IQ is certainly true, but behind him, there must be a lot of villains who want to eat human blood. In this battle, people with discerning eyes can see that the withered soul immortal on Dixian's side is extremely powerful and ruthless. If there's no certainty of victory, it's best to just give up. If you insist on fighting, it's basically a dead end. How could Senior Scarlet Blood Poison have the courage to come out? Moreover, even I can't dissuade him. Wang Wu said with a smile, naturally, someone bullied that old thing for being in seclusion for too long. They accused you and me, and even the entire Wanxian League of only looking after their own interests and suppressing the people. Then they bragged about his strength and made him forget himself, thinking that he could become famous in one fight. Little did they know that they don't want him to become famous, they want him to die on the spot. Wang Lu nodded. That's what happened. His death is too much of a contrast with the previous propaganda, which could easily cause the crowd to be agitated. At that time, as long as the crowd's emotions are guided, they can burn the fire on us, the organizers. For example, the preparation is not good, the quality of the medicine provided is not good, or they simply accuse us of being half-hearted and colluding with Dixian, causing these capable people to die in the competition with resentment. You seem to be very familiar with this. It's just a trick of making use of a pretext. I've seen it many times. I've also seen Wanxian League, please slow down and wait for your people, your conscience. Before. Compared to that, this is just child's play. Wang Lu said lightly. Moreover, we've received many similar complaints in the past 2 days. How did you deal with it? Why is it that after the death of Senior Poison and the situation of the grand competition, the high-level officials of the Wanxian League are still unrepentant and unrepentant? An impassioned article was written by him in an instant. The scholar laughed and said, Mo Xiang, send this article to them. I want to see it everywhere in the City of Immortals tomorrow morning. The maid named Mo Xiang beside him chuckled and took the article that had just started to dry. Her beautiful eyes wandered as she praised, Master's article is getting better and better. As soon as this article comes out, I'm afraid everyone in the Wanxian League would want to beat them up. Upon hearing this, the scholar laughed and said, this has nothing to do with my article. It's purely their own fault. Since the preparation of this grand competition, everything has been done by them. Moreover, their attitude is arrogant and selfish. I can see that several of their super sects have gotten this and that kind of benefit, but how much of it does my heavenly book building get? Those elixirs are fine, but since they said that they should unite as one, why did my heavenly book building apply for knowledge sharing from the 10,000 Arts sect, but they made all sorts of excuses? My article today is just a voice for the millions and millions of people who have suffered from it. Alright, time is of the essence. Mo Xiang, quickly send the article, no delay. The woman chuckled and nodded, then turned around and left. It was just that, when she turned around, her smile was a bit stiff. Master said it with awe-inspiring righteousness, but, as a person around him, how could she not know the truth? That article was indeed wonderful. The wonderful thing was that it was evasive at the key points, throwing ideas into people's minds and inciting people's hearts. For example, it said that his foundation was destroyed by his sect and he had no hope of reaching deity stage in his life. It sounded like the Senior Poison had a promising future and should be expected to reach deity stage. In fact, with his spirit root qualification, peak Yuanying stage was his upper limit. Secondly, it said that he had a fortuitous encounter with an ancient inheritance. That was true. Unfortunately, it was the inheritance of a small sect from 20,000 years ago, and the quality was not necessarily better than that of today's people. It was difficult to say that a deity stage could win. Low-level deity stage was indeed so. Almost invincible in the same stage, peak Yuanying stage was naturally almost invincible in Yuanying stage. As for the last paragraph, it was even more heart-wrenching. Why did they die on the spot after the preparation of the Wanxian League? Why did people from the righteous sects die so rarely? Because they had long warned the loose cultivators not to throw away their lives, and it was you who instigated them to appear.